Good evening, everyone. Wow, I came in really hot on that microphone. I apologize, but good evening, everyone. And tonight, of course, it's the first Friday of the month, so we're joined by Patrick Holland this evening to talk about what's going on in the legislature, amongst other things. I'm sure we'll talk about all kinds of topics because we always do when Patrick's on. So, give me a second. I'm going to close the door because a little pug just walked in and she's going to make a bunch of rackets, so give me just a moment. Luna, what are you doing, Stinky? Come here. Now you say hi to everybody. Hi, everybody. Okay. Out you go. You can't be in here. Nope, sorry. All right, now back to our regularly scheduled program. Sorry about that. My wife came in earlier and she didn't shut the door all the way, and now the doggo decided to make an appearance because she thinks she's that important. So let me start the recording and we shall proceed with the fun times.
In the restaurant of life, we're putting freedom back on the menu. It's the Missouri Liberty Report with John Williams, working with grassroots organizations and legislatures to make Missouri the freest state in the nation. Let freedom ring.
All right, folks, and we're back for another edition where freedom lovers unite and have civil discourse and ask questions and make comments right here on the Missouri Liberty Report. So good Friday evening to everyone out here in YouTube land, and good day to you, those of you in radio land or who download the podcast. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for your support. Before I get started, I know this is a ways off, but I'm super excited to announce that I have a guest coming up in April, and I wish it was sooner, but I'm booked out enough that she had to push it back till April. I was trying to get her here in March, but I'm going to have let me pick up my phone and look at my calendar so I don't mangle this woman's name, because it's not that it's super unusual, but my old man brain isn't working so well. So it's Kirsten, I want to say Tynan. It might be Tynan. Tynan. She is from a group called Fully Informed Jury Association. And guess what? They love to teach people all about jury nullification. And so she's going to be on with me April 14th. So I'm really, really looking forward to that because that's a topic that I haven't really delved into yet. And I put something out on Twitter, and thanks to Eep and Thampy, because Tom had recommended someone for me, and I looked him up on the internet, and I couldn't find anything. I put something on Twitter. Eep and Thampy, within 2 minutes, said, this gal right here, looked her name up, boom. So if you want to go to their site, it's FIJA.org. So FIJA.org, but it's Fully Informed Jury Association, and apparently they will, if you're close enough, and if you want to pay their travel expenses, they will fly someone there and for a group meeting for education, but they also will do it via internet. They have an email list that you can subscribe to. I think they even do like Zoom meetings where you can view them later on court cases that are, in session at the time that are kind of hot topics or whatever. But again, a new topic, a new subject for me to delve into with somebody who knows the material. But now that I've got through that, let's bring Patrick up. Patrick, good evening, sir.
Hey, how's it going, John?
Oh, it's going. How's it going with you, man?
It's actually going really good. Keeping busy. Lots of stuff to talk about, shoot, and I just want to say thank you very much for having me on again. The Missouri Liberty Report, it's awesome. Be there.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it is. It is still growing on the YouTube side. The downloads from Spreaker look great, and I'm still getting a lot of good feedback. So it is. It's nice to be a part of something and doing something that's actually being heard and that people appreciate. So without further ado, Patrick, let's kind of update everybody on what's going on in the legislature right now with some of the bills that the Missouri Freedom Initiative have taken a particular interest in. What's going on with some of these bills?
Sure. Okay, let's start with SB 100. That's also known as the Gold and Silver Bill. And that one has actually cleared committee. That one has been voted due pass out of committee and is now sitting on the Senate calendar. Now, I'm looking for, and I've been asking for, how many bills are on the calendar in what order. But I'm thinking there is a real good possibility this may be, and now please don't hold my feet to the fire on this because it's impossible to know when. My gut's telling me end of February timeframe, we should be hearing this bill on the floor of the Senate. So this is the time now to start emailing and phone calling senators, telling them how much you like SB 100, why you like SB 100, and ask them to vote positively for SB 100 when it hits the floor.
Yeah, that's a big one.
That is a big one. Yep. And in fact, it's so big that many states have borrowed some of the legislation and actually incorporated it for their own legislation in their own states. Tennessee is a great example. South Carolina is another one. Other states have to start slower because they still have sales tax on gold and silver. We didn't have that, so we didn't have to go through that hoop before we went through other hoops. We just had capital gains tax, which is relatively easy to get rid of compared to sales tax. So this is important legislation. It's it's moving through the system now. It's got lots of support, and I'd love to talk about the hearing for it before we get on to SB 161. That's Mary Elizabeth Coleman's elimination of sales tax on food, because the hearing for that is on Monday. So let's, and I'm going to talk about the hearing a little bit, and that's, from, week, 9 days ago. Today was 9 days ago. The hearing was for, gold and silver. But I want to say, because eventually at some point, a really nice lady that lives, pardon me, in Lake of the Ozarks, her name is Terry. She'll probably hear this podcast. And her nephew, by the name of Logan, 10-year-old, actually came out to testify on behalf of the Gold and Silver Bill. In the committee, there were 8 testimonies for the bill, none informational and none against. So it was very positive reception, basically for it. But the fact that a 10-year-old boy by the name of Logan came from Kansas City, drove all the way to Jefferson City, presumably with his family. No, he did go with his family, by the way. I know that for a fact. I don't want to suggest that he was driving or anything. That was the joke. But he might as well have been, because he was driving the committee pretty well, explaining to them the dangers of the Federal Reserve in his committee testimony. Very impressive young man. And just the fact that a 10-year-old took an interest in a bill like this and wanted to talk about the Federal Reserve, I thought that was pretty cool. But Terry, his aunt, actually did speak to this bill as well as others. So, that went really well, gang. And so now it's going to be going to the floor. It's on the calendar. It's on the formal calendar. In the Senate, they take them in order. So in order in which they were placed on the calendar, not necessarily by bill number. In fact, never by bill number on the calendar. It's how they were placed there. So if Bill, 102, SB 102 is the first one placed on the calendar for the legislative year, it'll be the first one heard on the floor. So at any rate, so that's really, really neat. So hello to Terry. Hello to Logan. It was great meeting both of you, and also I'll get into a story later on because I talked to Terry on the phone last night, as a matter of fact. So good things are happening. And before I get to SB 161, I'd love to talk about the meet and greet that was up in Eureka. That was 5 days ago, Sunday, and that was hosted by our very own Gary Ride. and John and I went up there to speak, and then we had a senator and a representative there. We had Ben Brown and Holly Jones, and I think it was a perfect event. Everything about it was awesome. I was very, very happy to be a part of that. And so thank you, Gary, for holding that event and everything that you did to make it happen, for hosting it, sponsoring it, promoting it. And so we actually connected constituents with their representation there. It's always good to do that, always. And so what are your thoughts on that, John? You were there as well. You were speaking.
It was much more mellow than mine. But it had a nice turnout. I think Gary said 34 people.
Yeah, something like that.
And there was a lot of good discussion. I mean, there were a lot of questions, a lot of insightful questions, and enough to where we got to learn even more about Ben Brown, and we got to learn a lot about Holly Jones. And I was really impressed with both of them, I have to say, because they stood up there, they took their time, they talked about the issues that were important to them, that that they were really fighting for, and a lot of their background. And when you asked them a question, the thing is, what I liked about them too, and we don't see this from a lot of politicians or anything. The fact is that a lot of them, if they don't know the answer, they try to dazzle you with some brilliance, and they sidestep the question, all trying to act like they don't know. What's nice about Ben and Holly is if they don't know, they'll say it, but you know that they're going to look into it, and you're going to get answers. That's what's nice about people like them. But yeah, I think it was a great turnout, and I think, again, the discussion was highly informative, and but at the same time, it was laid back. It was a relaxed environment, and I think a lot of people came away feeling pretty good about their representation in the state of Missouri.
Yep, I believe that's the case as well. There were people there with some tough questions, and there were people there with, how does this work? How does that work? How can we change this? In fact, what we were able to determine is, and by the way, kudos to everyone who went to that meeting, because there's a lot of folks that literally didn't know how the system worked at all. And they were asking, how does this even work? They were asking, John, if you remember, some were asking questions that were clearly stuff that were, city ordinance or county ordinance or federal law. They were asking their state senator or state rep, Holly or Ben, to be able to work with this or that. And of course they couldn't. So basically, education, that's what this is all about. And Holly and Ben both did a great job, not only speaking, but fielding their questions. They both did a stellar job. My goodness, I was just really proud to be a part of that. I was very happy that went the way it went, and Holly and Ben are just awesome. If you live in the district where you have Holly and Ben, you're in good hands. They're definitely looking out for their people there.
Yeah, I would say that, again, and it's one of those things. We have people that can't get past the point. They're everywhere. They can't get past the point where, I guess, some people feel like they have to agree with their representative every time on everything, and that's just never going to happen. We live in an imperfect world, and you're not going to get the perfect, politician, the perfect representative, the perfect senator. But you can come pretty close to saying, you know what, this is someone that I can depend on, who seems to have a good head on their shoulders and seem to be actually wanting to be in Jefferson City to represent their constituents. And it seemed like Holly and definitely Ben Brown, after talking, this is twice of hearing him speak, some of the bills that he's presented in the Senate, you can tell that not only does he believe in liberty, but he's worn the T-shirt being a business owner, and he's did the whole COVID thing with his bar and grill. So he's worn the T-shirt. He understands, but he's not there to you know to make things better for his business where he can make more money like some of them would do. He's actually there to tear down some of the walls that government's put up and make it better for all business owners and all people in the state of Missouri. That's the kind of representation that you want.
Yeah, absolutely. There were just really good. There were good examples of what representation should be like. And once again, they were both very happy to be there. I know that for a fact. I mean, I heard that from a very, very reliable source. They were very happy that there was a legislative meet and greet, that they could meet with constituents in the district. And so, that's the thing. These just don't happen very often anymore. And, once again, they appreciate that. The good ones do. The good ones really appreciate being able to meet with their constituents.
Yeah, it's
so.
Yeah, that's one of those things where they they definitely are a different breed than what most people think. Again, a lot of people, and rightfully so, we see how government acts. A lot of people just go, well, they're a politician and I don't trust them. But there are a few that you can put your trust in. And I know for sure, I can't say I know for sure, but I'm almost 100% certain that Ben is definitely one of those guys that you can put some faith behind. His demeanor, his actions, also, he walks the walk and he talks the talk. And we're fortunate that, in our district, he's our senator because we could do a lot worse than Ben Brown.
Yep. So at any rate, I'm glad we got to talk about that just a little bit because that was a major event we had, Sunday up in Eureka. And for anyone that was there, that may be listening in or watching this later, thank you for being there. Thank you for being a part of it. And this is how representative government is done. We stress over and over again, and we don't do it to make people laugh, but politicians are amongst the worst mind readers known to the human race. They literally don't know what you're thinking until you call them or send them an email or visit with them and tell them what you think. Otherwise, it's just a guess on their part. So, basically that's really important. So the initial contact for 35 or so people began on Sunday that had never talked to their representation before. I hope that they pick up the mantle and actually start calling them or emailing them and addressing issues that they see that are happening in the state or talking about legislation that is currently on the docket in the state so that representation will know what their constituency thinks. This is what it's all about. If we want to take the reins of the state of Missouri, we have to work with our representation. So that's how the people, basically get to, have a say in the governance of their state is by contacting their reps and their senators. And, once again, that's exactly what the meet and greets are all about. And it's an old idea that's been made new again. And it is very welcomed by the constituents and representation that some groups are still doing this or, starting to do it. And so thank you again to everyone who showed up and participated, whether you're watching live or whether you watch it later. Thank you for being there. So I'd like to say one more time, basically, for anyone who didn't catch the first, 5 or 10 minutes of the show, SB 100, the silver and gold bill, has actually cleared the committee, due pass. So it's sitting on the calendar waiting for its time on the Senate floor for debate and perfection. So this would be a very good time for you to email. Actually, what I would do, this is my advice, because this is what I do. First of all, call your senator, and it is your senator. You don't have to call reps at this time. Call your senator. Let them know, basically that you like SB 100, why you like SB 100, Very important to do that as well. And ask them to vote positively, vote yes for that when it's on the floor. And then follow up with an email, to your senator. And that's the process that I would use. So that's for getting SB 100. Basically, it's, the rocket's loading up with fuel. That's what's going on right now. So the more constituents that chime in about this, the more fuel the rocket will have to propel it to the House. So we can take care of business over there as well. So, John, if you don't mind, I'd love to switch to SB 161, the removal of sales tax from food, if that's okay.
Go right ahead.
Okay. That bill is put forth by Mary Elizabeth, I forgot her name
Coleman.
now. Coleman, thank you. And it's the same bill that our organization, the Missouri Freedom Initiative, supported last year in 2022 during the standard legislative season, but we also supported it during the governor's special session. Most of you will remember it from then because the governor was looking for ways to cut taxes in the state of Missouri. And this seemed the perfect opportunity. It's the most constitutional tax cut we can possibly do in the state of Missouri. No one has been able to even think of a better tax cut that affects the most people, a regressive tax cut that, it goes from the top all the way to the bottom. Everyone benefits from it because everyone buys food in Missouri that lives in Missouri, right? So all people would benefit from this. It doesn't matter anymore, what, income bracket you're in. It doesn't matter, where you live in the state. It doesn't matter, what you do for a living. It doesn't matter whether or not you have a large corporation. And none of these things matter anymore. Everyone benefits. And so that one is having a hearing in the Senate on Monday, literally the 6th of February at 2:00 in the afternoon. I will be there. I will be testifying for this bill. So for those of you who live close to Jefferson City, or you have the ability to get up there on Monday, I invite you to join, to go testify in front of the Senate committee. And basically we'll meet at Mary Elizabeth Coleman's office at about 1:30 in the afternoon. I think that would be a good time for us to meet. And then basically, we can all go up to the, I think it's in the, gosh darn it, I'm not sure where it's at. I'm sure someone can look that up though real quick, but it might be in the same place that we had the hearing for SB 100. What do they call it again? The Senate,
Senate hearing
lounge,
room.
I think.
Is it the Senate hearing room or they call it something else?
I think they called it the Senate lounge.
Oh.
So, it might be there, but anyway you slice it, it'll be right there, on the second or third floor. So, but we'll meet at Coleman's office, and I'll get you an office number for that in just a moment. And so we'll meet there, and then we'll be all ready to go forward, basically with, taking care of this particular bill. Okay, she is in room 334 on the third floor. So Mary Elizabeth Coleman is her name. She's a senator, and she's in room number 334. So that's what we'll do. We'll meet at her office and, basically go and testify for this bill. This is, as I say, once again, the best idea constitutionally for a tax cut in the state of Missouri. In my opinion, this is a more constitutional tax cut than even personal property tax, or even gasoline tax. The removal of sales tax from food must come first, in my opinion, because it's an immoral tax to begin with. But secondly, it's a regressive tax. So basically, every single person benefits, no matter who you are, no matter, how much money you make, whether, you're on a fixed income or not, or, whether or not you have a business, whether or not you're self-employed. It just doesn't matter. Everyone buys food in the grocery store. So if you can take out that tax, and by the way, taking out the tax means taking out the state, county, and city sales tax from food is what it means. So all of them go away because it would be removing the original statute from 1968 in Missouri that made it legal to tax food in the first place. So that's what we're trying to accomplish with this bill. And so that's the next one that's coming up for committee hearing. And that one, of course, we'll support through the system as well. And then after that, I believe the next one that we have on our docket would be Senate Bill 232, which is Jill Carter's Parents' Choice on Vaccination is what we call it. And we don't have a date for that yet. That's not even been assigned to committee yet. So at any rate, out of the bills that we're supporting, that's where we're at. Now, as far as personal property tax goes, it's my understanding there's going to be a change to that bill, but I don't have all the details yet. It should be able to get it out of committee and get it on the floor. So when we get all the details on that, basically, and it gets through committee, then we can start supporting that bill again. So that's where we're at with our Senate bills, the ones that we're actually supporting with the Missouri Freedom Initiative. And like I said, silver and gold, like I said, we're fueling up a rocket here. This is a big one. So let's all keep that in mind as we go forward.
And I know, Patrick, you've made comparisons between, Missouri and New Hampshire where they have the Free State Project. Mm-hmm. Multiple comparisons. And we talk about, or you've talked about, getting people's freedom by eliminating some of these taxes. Now, how big would it be for this state? I mean, honestly, if you could make gold and silver legal money in the state of Missouri and eliminate a tax from the people, that's gigantic. If you can kill two birds with one stone in a legislative session like that,
yeah,
every single person in the state gains freedom by taking government out of their lives a little bit or adding to their lives without restrictions and regulations and laws and all these other things. People are gaining things back that they should have had all along, and they're not, but without a trade-off of losing something else. And I think that's extra special if those two things can get done in this session. That's huge.
Sure.
And think about it. This state, I mean, it is funny. Look at the focus this state is going to have on. People are going to focus, not just locally, but nationally. That sheds a big spotlight on the state. It also shows people that, hey, yes, the feds may be a giant dumpster fire, but look what you can still get done in your state if you apply yourselves, if you put in the work, put forth some effort, contact your representatives and start having discussions. These are things that you can get done without having to have a lot of money and all these other things. You can accomplish these tasks simply by, putting your will behind it and getting others to get involved. It would be so big for this state, not just for the people of the state, but really people all across the country, because this gives them this might be uplifting for a lot of people and spur more people to action.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you said that, because it struck me, if we get the gold and silver bill through the way we want it to, we rocket on the sound money index in the United States. We rocket, and I use that word on purpose, from spot 16 in the United States to spot number 1 if we get our gold and silver bill through. So in the sound money index, we would go from 16 to 1. We would be leapfrogging 15 states in one single fell swoop. But in the freedom index, we would move from spot 11 to spot 9. We would be jumping over 2 states. So, actually 1 state from 11 to 9. We'd get closer to the number 1 spot in the freedom index in the United States. So that's what this movement, this revolution, the Missouri Freedom Initiative is all about. is literally getting us back on the path to liberty instead of on a path to giving up what we were given, literally by the blood, sweat, and tears of many people over many years. The liberties that we were given, according to the Declaration of Independence by our Creator, giving those up to the federal government, who is abusing these rights that we have. They're taking them away. I was thinking about that while I was driving today. Is a single piece of legislation like the Electronic Surveillance Act, it basically eviscerated, that came in the Patriot Act. That's after 9/11. After that went through, basically our Fourth Amendment right was over. It was just done. We didn't have a right to privacy anymore. Why? Because the government says, well, because everyone's safety depends on us knowing what everyone's doing, because there might be some terrorists hiding in the bushes here in the United States. That was, in one fell swoop, it happened. National Defense Authorization Act, Military Commissions Act of 2006. Let's go back to, the Smith-Mundt Act. We could go into, basically how it's okay now for the federal government to purvey propaganda to us through the mainstream media. It is legal for them to lie to us. It's legal, gang. I'm not kidding. We've gone in the wrong direction so hardcore in the last 20 years. It was somewhat slow before then. It took a while, but it's accelerating. So we have to accelerate hard in the other direction, not just hit the brake. We have to go in the other direction. And that's what we're doing in the state of Missouri. I love it.
It's amazing. And again, if people are watching, the people that are I know there's people watching on YouTube. For some reason, I can't see your chat, and you can't see mine. So I apologize. I'm literally watching the other stream as I'm talking to you, Patrick, to see people's chat, because it's not showing up on my end for some reason, and my settings have not changed. But for whatever reason, in my streaming side, I don't see squat.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll take a look at it real quick here.
So I'm looking, and I don't see any questions yet. But everybody's just kind of, nobody's put up anything, any questions as of yet. So I apologize, folks. YouTube is doing something weird, and this is the first. But I will just keep an eye on the actual stream itself. I'm just watching myself as I'm however many seconds behind, and I will keep an eye on the chat from this side. And Doug, yes, it says, good. Can you see this, John? Yes, I can. I just can't see it on the streaming. I don't know. So, okay, I want to bring this up, Patrick, because I saw this on Facebook from Jody Grace talking about Medicaid expansion, and it looked like Mary Elizabeth Coleman was getting involved in that, but not to derail it, but helping. Did you see that?
I did not.
Now, I didn't. I didn't. I didn't have time to look at it at the time when I saw it. But Jody Grace posted something that looked like Mary Elizabeth Coleman was going along with this Medicaid expansion, and she's kind of scratching her head trying to figure out why she's doing that. I didn't know if you'd seen that or not.
I have not. No, I haven't. But I'll tell you what, we will see Mary Elizabeth Coleman on Monday, so we can ask her directly about this. That
is true. That is very true. What is the name of there? Is it Missouri Freedom Foundation? Is that her group?
Yeah, that is correct. Missouri Freedom Foundation is Jody Grace's group.
Okay. But yeah, I saw something, and I was like, and it supposedly it's for post-pregnant women. Yeah, so postpartum, that sort of thing. Yep. And the concern is that Caleb Rowden is trying to extend that out to Missouri women who do get an abortion. For instance, go to Illinois, get an abortion, come back,
and then get on Medicaid for postpartum, issues. That's the concern.
Yeah, because according to this post, now again, I can't say for sure because I haven't looked into it. But according to the post, it says, make no mistake, Mary Elizabeth Coleman is lined up with Rhino leadership and already being elevated by the establishment. This freshman senator somehow, as a committee chair already, is going to carry the water for Medicaid expansion, and she's enjoying the time already swinging the gavel and controlling the Senate floor from the dais. So I don't know. Again, I haven't looked into that. I don't know that that's necessarily true, but that is...
Yeah. And thank you for bringing that up, John, because like many other states, sometimes there's a lot of politics within the politics within the politics.
Right.
And so basically it is really, really a good idea to check with a senator or a representative when there's a rumor going around about them, to be sure to, chat with them a little bit. Make sure, that you get all the facts straight before you go on the offensive or, start attacking them. One example of this was Aaron Dorr, Missouri Firearms Coalition. He has, in a couple of instances, gone off half-cocked. Forgive the expression of half-cocked, because Missouri Firearms Coalition. When he didn't have all the information and he attacked people that it wasn't necessary to attack because he didn't have all the information. And one of which was a kind of a very well-known one, and that was Mike Moon, and that was during the primaries of last year, of 2022. And he said, Mike Moon refused to fill out a survey, for the Missouri Firearms Coalition. Then Mike Moon put out a great video on Facebook.
Yeah, he did.
To answer Aaron and said, you know what? I didn't refuse to fill out anything. I never received a survey. And it just is kind of weird, that you said I refused to fill one out. I didn't even know one was coming. I never received one. I don't know if it was by mail or by email. I have no clue. But I never received one. And you would think before you'd make a claim like that you would contact me and ask me why I haven't filled it out before you actually go and attack me publicly. And so Aaron Dorr was eating crow at the end of that. I don't know if he personally apologized to Mike on that. It'd be good politics if Aaron Dorr had contacted Mike and said, I'm very sorry. You're absolutely right. I should have, contacted you before I made that video. But in fact, that'd be a good question for Mike Moon.
Yeah, it would be. Now, somebody in a live stream wants to know about HJR 43. They see it as a grab at liberty and failing to address the problems that let Amendment 3 move forward. So, what's your take on HJR 43?
Okay, I know a little bit about it, but I haven't had time to look into it here in the last week. HJ 43 has been amended. Basically, it's not like HJR 30, but it is better than it was before. And I think, once again, without actually being able to look at the actual legislation, the way it's been amended and changed, it's passed out of committee. But my understanding is 30 is the best option right now. 43 is the second best option, and it just goes downhill from there. That's my understanding right now, and that's right from Ron Calzone's emails. So I've taken on a good authority from him. He's the expert on IP initiatives. I don't think there is a bigger expert in the state of Missouri on IP initiatives and looking out for the liberty of the people than Ron Calzone himself. So he still says 30 is the best option we have. 43 is second best, and it just, like I said, from there it just kind of goes downhill pretty quick.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't 100% up to snuff on it, but I was like, well, I'll see what you had to say about it because I know it is a big deal. There's a lot of talk about it, and depending on which one it is, it could really help Missourians or it could really screw us over and leave us more beholden to big money than we already are. And that is a major problem And yes, something needs to be done about making it too easy to amend the Constitution. Um, but
Yep.
other than that, I wasn't fully educated on HCR 43, so I wasn't sure if there were like major differences or some minor differences in the bill languages. Wasn't sure.
Well, I think 30 might have had some language about not only about the ballot initiative itself, but also about how the delegates are chosen. And, basically that the people have to vote, in a certain number, not just 51%, a simple majority, but another measure, if you will, to vote to change the Constitution. So I think there were added benefits to 30. And that was clearly the one that Ron said was the best for the state of Missouri. And like I said, Ron is the authority on this. Ron knows this IP initiative thing. Ron's been, fighting for us in the state of Missouri for 13 years on these ballot initiatives. It's come up every year for 13 years. The only reason we still have a ballot initiative process is because Ron has been there all along fighting off the dogs. And so we're joining him. We're going to help fight too, because clearly there are people in Jefferson City that want to take away the ballot initiative, or more specifically, in a token way, just make it so difficult to get a ballot initiative done that only the richest, deepest pockets can possibly do it.
Yeah, it seems like, it's sometimes even people who maybe aren't beholden to big money, when they decide to, try to solve the issue, they go way, way beyond what they should be doing, and they'll go 100,
Right.
they'll go 110%, 200% over, and it's like, whoa, 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 easy. We understand there's a problem, but when you go to that extreme, you're making it so much harder for everyone to do anything. And so sometimes it's just this natural instinct to say, we got to crush this right now. And there's no thought behind it. They just want to seem like they got it done. But again, basing something on its intent rather than its outcome is highly problematic.
Yeah. It's knee-jerk reactions to stuff like, Medicaid expansion, being included into the Missouri Constitution, which it never should have gone there. Medicaid expansion should be in the law, not in the Constitution. And by the way, I'm not a fan of Medicaid expansion to begin with, but putting in the Constitution is, if you will, it's kind of like a tether to the federal government's, programs for health care. And in Missouri, I don't know how many tethers we want to the federal government when it's failing and its currency is failing. And the more tethers that we rope in to our Constitution as the federal government, the more pain we're going to feel when the dollar ultimately fails. Because it's in our Constitution to provide these Medicare benefits. What happens if we simply can't afford them anymore? We're in a hyperinflation. We still have to provide that. If the state is broke, how do they provide these services? It's in the Constitution now. How do we pay for it if there's no money? Then, basically we got to find it somewhere. So they're going to tax the people, to continue providing these services, because it's in our Constitution. It's not in the U.S. Constitution, nor is it amended into the U.S. Constitution, but it is in the Missouri Constitution. Think about that, folks. Bingo rules, that was just embarrassing. Let's go to Amendment 3. Amendment 3 was basically something that was voted in because people literally couldn't get the marijuana laws they wanted done through the General Assembly. So as opposed to the General Assembly taking this as a lesson, well, maybe we should listen to the people more, because there was a big effort to try and get, good recreational marijuana legislation done through the General Assembly. As opposed to taking that lesson, the lesson they took was, we just got to shut it down. We can't let people have access to the Constitution anymore. We can't let them get around us, the General Assembly. We, the ones that, stop them from getting the recreational marijuana they wanted done in the first place. No, we just need to literally, rule with an iron fist. Majority tyranny is, basically the order of the day. And this is not the way our government was supposed to work. One thing I want people to remember about a ballot initiative, I can't remember how many states. I think it's 17 states have a ballot initiative. And for those of you who don't know what it is, I apologize for not explaining. It is important. But I'm sure that you guys have heard, depending on what state you're in, if in case you're watching this in New Jersey or California or wherever, is when the people can, by a petition process, actually get something on the ballot to amend the Constitution. And that's what we refer to as IP, or an initiative petition. And so ballot initiative is what we call it on the ballot. And what's constantly, we do have the one here in Missouri, and we have the easiest one to work with. We have the least restrictions. So consequently, it gets used and abused, by, special interests to get certain things put into the Missouri Constitution, such as Medicaid expansion. But when you have corporations, literally coming in and paying to collect signatures and to get legislation passed that was actually 39 pages long, but on the ballot, it was only 2 paragraphs. How many people who voted yes to the recreational marijuana use, I wonder, went and looked and read the 39 pages that actually went into that ballot initiative that ended up as 2 paragraphs for them on the ballot? They don't know that this is a fascist program we have for marijuana now here in the state of Missouri. Out of desperation, the people that have wanted marijuana, recreational marijuana in the state of Missouri, out of desperation, they voted yes on Amendment 3 because the General Assembly wouldn't let them have it any other way. And so now we have a fascist version. The state benefits and corporations benefit. That's what we got.
And,
So,
there's counties already lining up to add sales tax to it. So
Absolutely. And that's coming too. Yep.
Yep. The cities and the counties are chomping at the bit for tax revenue. Back in, I want to say 2020, there's a guy from the Missouri Libertarian Party who actually spoke with, or maybe it was 2016. Good Lord, I can't remember now. But it was 2016. Why is my microphone popping so bad? But anyway, I remember he was running for Missouri state rep or something to that effect. And he said that, the marijuana came up in the debate. And everybody had a chance to respond, and everybody's there's like, well, I don't really think it's a good idea. And he said, listen, the legislature doesn't want to. They don't want to move on it. They don't want to do anything. So let's. Why don't you put it to a vote of the people? Now, I'm sure he didn't mean something to that effect, where you had a ballot initiative funded by outside influence. But he was trying to make a point that said, hey, people, the people of the state generally want this, and you're not doing anything. You're afraid to make your constituents mad, or you're afraid the police departments are going to be angry with you, something. But you're not moving on this, and people are getting sick and tired of it. The problem is, that at times like these, when you have it doesn't matter if it's this or eliminating taxes or whatever. If you have a legislature that won't move on things and won't take up the will of the people, you find somebody else who does. But you don't pass a crappy ballot initiative that still can put you in jail and is going to make it harder for you to get your record expunged. It's not as easy as they said it's going to be. Plus all the other gobbledygook that they had wrapped up in 39 pages of language, you wouldn't have to, I guess, compromise your principle in order to get something legalized if people would move more towards getting legislators who would, again, listen to their constituents instead of listening to their donors. And
Yep.
in that, therein lies the problem, because people have to educate themselves on who's running for office, what they actually stand for, their past, everything. They have, until the populace decides to educate themselves. We get this circular thing of, well, the legislature won't do it, so now we got to do ballot initiative. I don't have a problem with ballot initiatives, but it would be so much better if people would educate themselves and put people in office who will actually listen to them.
Well, not only that, but these legislators, I think, in many cases, need to educate themselves. And so this, I hate to say that, we do have some smart people up in Jeff City, but at the same time, when it came to the marijuana issue, this is an education issue, because the negative connotation of marijuana through the years, through 100 years, a century in America, based on corporations such as paper industry and clothing industry shutting down hemp. That's what started this whole thing. And of course, it went right into marijuana. Dangerous drug. So when's the last time? And by the way, I am not an advocate for marijuana. I don't want people to get the impression that I am, but I don't have a problem with it either. I'm neutral. That's where I'm at. I am very pro hemp, though. So I say that openly. I say Missouri could be the leader in these here United States in literally alternative fuels. We could have biodiesel here in Missouri made out of hemp and be a leader and a powerhouse to literally become energy independent right here in Missouri. Very few steps need to be taken to do that, but unfortunately, hemp is tied to marijuana. We have to release marijuana in order to do that. And so, but at the same time, I'm neutral on marijuana. You get where I'm coming from. Just the negative education, the propaganda against marijuana for years, and hemp for that matter, have been astounding, absolutely astounding. And of course, it's fueled by paper industry, clothing industry, lotion industry. Hemp is slowly being allowed again, thank God. But, basically we need to start creating the infrastructure, the framework here in this state, basically for hemp farming and for biodiesel, creation of biodiesel. And I know it sounds strange. I'm not an expert in that field, but I do know they can use the entire hemp plant to make biodiesel. You can't do that with corn. You're doing it with the corn. The rest of the stock gets thrown away in the process. With hemp, every bit of that hemp that you're growing can actually be turned into biodiesel. That seems a lot more efficient to me.
Yeah, and you are right. And you look at the uses for, comparing corn and hemp, let's say. Corn's, you can use part of it for fuel, and then you get your high fructose corn syrup and everything. Let's not forget that this all comes from government subsidies, is why corn is so big. But if you look at the uses for hemp and marijuana combined compared to something like corn, well, then the benefits outweigh anything you're going to get out of corn. I mean, by a tremendous amount. It is ridiculous, but again, you're talking about the cotton industry, the pharmaceutical industry, alcohol and tobacco industries. The a lot of the I don't remember, the anti-drug campaign funding, a big majority of that funding comes from A, pharmaceutical, B, tobacco, and alcohol. Now, alcohol and tobacco are drugs, but because of their friendships with government for years, they are allowed in. And allowed to, now, of course, the tobacco industry isn't what it once was, but still, for how many years was tobacco a friend of government? And alcohol has always been a friend of government. I mean, look at Nancy Pelosi. She probably keeps half the whiskey companies afloat with her drunken debauchery.
Are you
still,
suggesting her debauchery? Are you suggesting she has a drinking problem?
It's either that or she's had multiple strokes because the amount of slurring that woman does. She either has a medical ailment or, good Lord Almighty, alcohol is a main staple of her diet. I don't know.
Yeah, she drinks her lunch. I mean, there is no doubt about it in my mind. She's an alcoholic. By the way, I'll say that very openly. I think she's an alcoholic.
She has to be. I mean, other than people who are just downright evil and insane, which she partly is also, when we're talking during the days of COVID, when the COVID lockdowns and everything starts, and the woman is on camera bragging about the expensive ice cream in her freezer that her and her grandkids are going to enjoy, while the rest of us are supposed to suffer. Either you're an evil drunk woman, or, something upstairs isn't firing away. I don't know. It's just, but again, we've had, 100 years of government propaganda to beat down. This isn't one of those things where it's just like everything else government has built up. You're not going to tear it down in one day. But people in government at the state level need to understand that before medical marijuana was brought up, I got to cut. Crap, I wasn't watching my marker there. I just had to cut for the radio. They'll love that. I just cut out right in the middle of a sentence. But the hypocrisy is awful strong on this whole subject. But I want everybody to understand, several years ago, Catherine Austin Fitts, who worked in the, what did she work in? The Department of Health or something, or Housing and Urban, maybe it was HUD. I believe she was in there under Clinton. She might have been in there under Bush for a little while. She did an interview one time and she told everybody. She said, yes, I agree that the war on drugs is awful. But she's like, I want to make this absolutely clear that if the war on drugs ended tomorrow at a federal level, everybody out there, within the sound of my voice that gets social security or disability, you won't get a check next month.
Yep.
And so, again, here in this state, if the legislature would have listened, we could have ended and started prohibition, at least on marijuana, at the legislative level without touching the Constitution and without worrying about throwing people in a cage for a plant that's basically harmless. We could have done all these things if the legislature had listened to their constituents. They refused, and now we're stuck with something, and the people who voted for it don't understand and didn't understand at the time that if the feds were to decriminalize marijuana, the people in Missouri are stuck with that crap that's stuck in the Constitution, with limits on, possession, still possible jail time, fines, high tax rates on everything you buy in a dispensary. Not
to mention the lottery system, to pick who gets to grow and who gets to sell the marijuana in the state of Missouri. This is a corporatist dream package. This is fascism. The people that claim they hate fascism voted for a fascist bill. And they'll find out soon enough, unfortunately. But once again, there were 39 pages 39 pages of words that they said they distilled down to 2 paragraphs on your ballot back in November. And trust me, they didn't do a very good job of distilling. Actually, they did distill it. They purified it. They made it look very different on the ballot than it looked like on paper. When it was actually a ballot initiative, when there were signatures being collected, it looked very different. So, and plus they get to put the language on whatever they want to on the ballot because they were the initiators of the ballot initiative. So, folks, but the point is not for us to complain about marijuana here. It's about basically the ballot initiative process, how we can fix it in Missouri. But the fact that we got garbage in our Constitution because the General Assembly wasn't listening to the people. And that's the main argument we have here. So yeah, things like HJR 30 actually do address both issues in a way. Now, as far as the General Assembly goes, I think we should make that an issue. I think that's something that we should start talking to them about, that they do need to listen on things that they have let's just say a very strong feeling or regard leaning towards one thing or another, a firm conviction, if you will. And it's because of the education system that so many people who are in public office in the state of Missouri refuse to look at any issues regarding marijuana because marijuana is evil. It's the devil's lettuce. Once again, educate yourself. Education. And the politicians, because of these quote unquote firm convictions, decided not to educate themselves. And it's as simple as that. And so do we hate our politicians? No. But hopefully they've learned some valuable lessons. And I think it's important to remind them what the lesson to be learned from Amendment 3 going through in November of 2022 is. They're not listening and they're not learning on certain issues because of their quote unquote firm convictions.
And it's another thing like, excuse me, personal property tax is another one where they're not listening. A lot of these guys are not listening to people on personal property tax. And again, if you have more than 2 brain cells to rub together, it's not hard to see why people are so upset about something like a personal property tax. But we have an awful lot of supposed conservatives. Anytime it comes up, they want nothing to do with elimination of personal property tax. And,
right.
The platform that they supposedly stand on is kind of broken. It's starting to collapse in because they're clearly not paying attention, and they don't seem to care. And personal property tax is going to continue to be a battle to get rid of, but I'm sick and tired of the argument that, oh my God, what are we going to do? How are we going to fund things? Why don't you ask the other states that don't have it? Yeah, no, it's like they can't bear to make an effort to see how these other states are doing it that don't have a personal property tax. And it boggles my mind because it's like we're not the only ones out here not going to be doing this. What are there? There's 27 states that don't have one. And so, and out of the 23, we're third highest. That's a problem in a state where our population doesn't seem to be big enough to where you're like, oh my God, where are we going to get funding? When I had Robert Brown on the other week and he talked about the amount of people in a state, when you see just like federal tax, just tax dollars in general, but federal tax dollars coming in, how it seems to cost the state more money the more federal funding they get. But you got to look at it this way, folks. The more government taxes you, the more it ends up costing you because they spend that money and then they need more for another program. So every time government takes more tax money, they're going to end up needing more because they keep spending it away. We've got to figure out a way to cut the crap.
You bet. In the case of what we're dealing with here in Missouri, and I hate to use these terms. I'm going to use these terms because everyone knows what they are. It's the rhinos and the Democrats that don't want to get rid of taxes. And that's a fact. And unfortunately, that represents about 66% of our legislature, the rhinos and the Democrats. So you have to fight them off. Now, the beauty of getting rid of the sales tax on food is it doesn't hurt the state that much because they're pulling in very little money on sales tax in the grocery store. Who's going to hurt from this are the cities and the counties. Those are the ones who are going to fight to keep it. And this is a case of not in my backyard, or NIMBY, as we used to say back in the 90s, because the state acknowledges taxes have to get cut. The state is pulling in too much money, and there's a constitutional problem here. It says very specifically in the Missouri Constitution that literally the state only taxes the people what it needs for its operations. We have a $6 billion kitty up in Jefferson City because we're pulling in more than we need. $6 billion with a B. And so we've got to cut taxes, but every single place you turn to cut taxes says, nope, we can't afford it. We have to have the money. So we're going to be dealing with that as we try to cut some taxes here this year legislatively in 2023. I guarantee it. When we tried to get rid of personal property tax, SB 8, a bunch of, public union officials, fire chiefs, police chiefs, first responders, ambulance drivers, librarians, came out to literally say, we have to have this money. You can't take it away. Well, we're going to have to cut somewhere, gang. And this is now what we're dealing with. These guys are addicted to the heroin, and it happens on every level. So what did Governor Parson do during special session to cut taxes in 2022? Well, he gave the people an income tax cut that was coming anyway in July by law. By law, in July, it was coming. And he gave it to them a little bit early. But the majority of it actually went to tax incentives and tax cuts for farmers, which affect 10% of the population in the state of Missouri. So where the governor was cutting taxes, he decided that 10%, cutting the taxes for 10% of the people was more beneficial than cutting for 100%. This is the problem when it comes to cutting taxes. The special interest groups are there for adding taxes and adding programs, you betcha. But they're there on the other side too. It's like in the stock market. Smart people can make money when stocks are going up. Smarter people make money when they're going down. And that's what happens with tax cuts too. Literally, the NIMBYs come out. They're not in my backyard, folks. You can't cut our fire department. You can't cut funding to our police department. You can't cut, to our city street budget. You can't cut here. You can't cut there. They come out and they fight, literally fight, for that, for those taxes, that we have to cut. And so the state's going to have to cut somewhere. And I'm hoping that, basically we can get rid of the sales tax on food. I mean, that's a big one here in the state of Missouri. We shouldn't have this. We're a big red state. We should have big red state ideas. And by the way, I need to get rid from the red and the blue thing because that was forced on us by the media. And red stands for communism. I'm 51 years old. And back when I was a kid, you were better dead than red because red was the color of communism, Russia, China. I just thought I'd throw that out there because I need to get rid of some of these terms that I keep using. I know people know them very well and what they're supposed to mean, but, we need to get away from that. But and even the term rhino. Let's call these Republicans what they are. They're unconstitutional fascists. They're fascists. And we do have them in Missouri, unfortunately. They go with what their campaign contributors tell them to do. That's what a fascist is. It's an unholy union between business and government that benefits business and government against the will and against the benefit of the people. And that's what we currently call rhinos, but we need to come up with a better term for them. But, that's my rant. Sorry about that.
No problem. It's just, until I, let's see, was it been 2 years ago that I interviewed Bill Eigel one day? He something I was unaware of until he talked to him or until I talked to him. Till he talked to him, yeah, that sounded good. Till I talked to him was that, the counties get 15 to 25%, depending on the classification of that personal property tax. And so these counties act like they're getting every bit of that money, and they're only getting at the most 25% of it. Now, I understand, depending on the county, that's a good chunk of change. The state is taking at least 75% of that money. Okay, so that's something else I think people need to understand when we talk about this, because they're like, what about the schools and what about this? So, like, you understand that they only get, like, Gasconade County probably gets 15% of that money. That's all they get. The state is literally taking the rest of it. What is the state doing with it? We don't know, because
Are you talking about on personal property tax?
yes, on personal property tax.
It's different here in Christian County. I mean, the vast majority of our personal property tax where I live in Clever goes to the school system by far. It's about 80% of what's collected. I don't know the breakdown from there, but here in Christian County, the schools get the vast majority of it.
Now I could be wrong, but I could have swore, I'm gonna have to go back and look for that. I could have swore that's what he said, that the counties don't get the majority of that money, or maybe it's flipped. I don't know, but I could have swore that's what he told me in that interview. But
Gotcha.
again, 27 other states are doing just fine. We don't hear about 27 states without personal property tax not having any roads or schools or fire departments or policemen. So clearly the money's coming from somewhere.
Yeah. Let me throw something else out there for everyone, because we're going to deal with this really quick as an organization. The state is collecting too much money because of inflation. I mean, that's just a fact. When you have inflation, taxes are a percent. They're always a percent. And so basically, as you're spending more money for a car or for groceries or spending more money for clothes or anything else that you go out and buy, the sales tax goes up because it's a percent. The same thing is true of your city and county. Cities and counties are flush with cash right now. I have talked to cities and counties. They're not saying a word. As the governor is saying, we need to cut taxes. You haven't heard a peep out of these people, city and county. They're going, oh, I sure hope they stop at the state and they don't go after city and county, because they're flush too. They're enjoying and they're wasting money. And by the way, I don't want to talk about some of the stories I've heard, but I have heard the stories of tremendous waste because they're just so flush with cash because of inflation. The percentage of taxes they're collecting goes up with inflation, and their budgets didn't need that much. So, they're finding new ingenious ways to waste money. That's literally what we're dealing with, folks. I mean, we got to cut everywhere. A mom and pop is hurting. Everyone's hurting out there. The state is flush. They are fat. They're eating literally filet mignon, while the rest of us are spending, $7 for a dozen eggs. Trust me, the situation needs to be rectified quickly. We're going to cut taxes this year. This organization, the Missouri Freedom Initiative, we're going to work on getting rid of sales tax on food because that is the most moral thing to do. And it's also the most constitutional tax to cut. Those of you who can join me on Monday, this coming up Monday, 3 days from now, up in Jefferson City, please do and help me to get this out of committee so we can actually get it onto the floor of the Senate. We've got to do this, gang. And actually, I have a good feeling that Bill, is going to come up with Bill Eigel is going to come up with a great compromise so we can start looking at cutting personal property tax as well. Those would be two really good areas to cut taxes in. Personally, I would rather see the gas tax done rather than personal property. But at the same time, personal property tax, I'll take it if I can get it. I'm paying that too.
Right.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, this talk about the cities being, cities, counties, and the state being flush with money because of inflation. This brings me back to last week's talk with Darren Chappell and how he said that, as a city manager, he was cutting 5% every year. That's what people are going to have to start looking at too at this time. is going to
Yep.
their city government and saying, "Hey, we know for a fact that you're gaining record amounts of tax revenue. So how about cutting some spending?
Yep.
How about a 5%?" And of course, the moaning and groaning and the hand
Yep.
wringing and the hanky stomping will be never ending. But like he said,
John,
you did it
you're
one
so right.
time, and then next year it wasn't as hard. The year after it wasn't as hard because they all realized they were still able to function at a good level, losing 5% of that budget.
Yep. Yep. Agreed. And this is what we have to do as a state. Now, you talked earlier about, what we're trying to accomplish with the Missouri Freedom Initiative versus, our friends in New Hampshire with the Free State Project. Now, our personal freedoms, we have to get. I mean, that's what they put that on the back burner because they wanted to eliminate taxes to make it appealing for other libertarians to move out there. Well, what they didn't think they didn't think, well, gosh, maybe socialists from New York and Massachusetts, might want to live here. They didn't think that. When they cut taxes, holy mackerel, the bums rush from New York and from Massachusetts was incredible, which started the Granite State Project. Let's just call them what they are, gang, the socialists. And the socialists, moved in to enjoy the low taxes and are looking to take away more and more freedoms. So they're kind of like in gridlock in the General Assembly in New Hampshire now. Those who want freedom and those who want tyranny. They both control about half of the legislature there, each. So, basically, it's kind of a gridlock. They can't, and plus the price of homes in New Hampshire just swelled out of control. Just ballooned, because of all the people moving in to enjoy the low taxes. So that's why we're going for our freedoms first. And then, we're nibbling away at the taxes. But like New Hampshire doesn't have property tax. We haven't accomplished that in Missouri. Boy, if we didn't have property tax here, we'd be a very, very appealing state, not only for people wanting to live here and raise families, but for corporations and businesses to come in and do business here. And that's what New Hampshire did, so so let's get our freedoms first. And we have a lot of freedom here. We have a lot of things that'll keep the socialists out. We have the Second Amendment Preservation Act. We have outlawed abortion here in the state of Missouri. We're we're working towards getting gold and silver as legal tender in the state again. And hopefully getting basically some sort of state repository with, a certain percentage of the state's reserves held, basically so we can start distancing ourselves from the dollar in the event that the dollar starts to, not feel, actually it's already sick. But let's just say, if the dollar gets on its deathbed, we won't get pulled down with a sinking ship, that the Missouri government can still function, that we can still have, trade and commerce, that we can still have, businesses here and people getting paid and being productive and doing productive things, and kids can get education. We can still keep that going in the state of Missouri while the rest of the country is trying to figure out how to deal with the dying dollar. We can be using gold and silver instead. So we can have that, that fallback measure put in place, basically through our General Assembly. There's lots of things that can be done, but, to protect yourself from the falling dollar. But I mean, gold and silver as legal tender is really kind of the best option you got. There really isn't a better option right now. And I know that there will be at some point Bitcoin purists coming in and telling me that I'm nuts, and I get it. I understand that people who really believe in Bitcoin think Bitcoin is the way, is the future. Well, it may be the future, but it doesn't have 5,000 years of history backing it up like gold and silver does. And that's a fact. So 5,000 years of recorded history of gold and silver as use of money and use as transition between fiat currencies. We have all that history. Bitcoin doesn't have it. So should we trust something new because it's new and it's neat and it's electronic and it's digital? You can do that with a dollar. You can do that with gold and silver. You can do that with anything. Gold and silver, though, do have intrinsic value far beyond the use of money.
And, not to mention what's gone on with FTX, and maybe down the road, who knows, some
Yeah.
of these other outfits may be just as corrupt as them. And I think, again, I understand that it's blockchain, it's supposed to be, decentralized, but that does not mean that the government can't get their hands on something like that. I mean, they're working on the digital dollar. They're ready to roll that thing out at any moment. And, as Charles Lewis said, a lot of these things have back doors in them. To think that they're just closed off from everything and completely nobody's going to be able to touch them, I think is a bit naive. Again, as you stated, gold and silver's been around a long, long time, way longer than any other type of money. And to me, looking at it from my perspective, that's the safest bet, because yes, there are prices and it's somewhat centralized, but again, what other things in this world do we have as far as a system of something to use with purchasing power? What else do we have throughout history that is held up like gold and silver? We have nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing even comes close to gold and silver or precious metals. So to me, I'd rather hedge my bet with gold and silver than something that I literally cannot hold in my hand. Now, I know some people are like, well, now you can actually get a Bitcoin. You can actually hold. Yeah, where the heck am I going to spend it? Sure, I can hold it in my hand, but who's going to take it? And if we pass a gold and silver bill in the state of Missouri and a retailer wants to take gold and silver as payment, you'll be able to spend your gold and silver if you'd like. And you'll always be able to hold it in your hand. That's just, there's some, again, give you an example. I have a Kindle because I don't have enough room to buy all the books that I want, and I don't have the shelving for it. So I have a Kindle. And I love my Kindle because it holds, 2,000 or 3,000 books. Some people like actual books. They like to hold that book in their hand and flip the pages, and I get it because I do have a lot of books here at the house. You're going to have your purists, and it's the same thing. Bitcoin, you're going to have people in the crypto thing. It's newfangled. It's technology, and that's where they're going. But there's a lot of people who still want to be able to hold something in their hands, something that they traded fiat currency for a precious metal, and the value of it doesn't fluctuate so badly that if you buy it and then you turn around, like what Bitcoin got up to 50-something thousand and dipped all the way to 16. You're not going to see that with gold and silver. You're not going to have those huge fluctuations. But there's a good percentage of the population that wants to hold that object in their hand because there's something significant, especially when you're talking about money, of actually holding on to it, to have it in your possession and have control of that. Whereas Bitcoin, they might have it in a vault that's got, military grade encryption. But you're looking at it on your smartphone or your computer. You're not holding it in your hand. And there's a big damn difference between the two of those things.
Yep. So here's another deal to look at. You're a parent just like I am.
Mm-hmm.
And holy mackerel, gang, we can't gamble on the dollar going down on Bitcoin. Let's just be honest here. We cannot take that gamble. We have kids, we have grandkids. That's one heck of a big gamble to take. We need to have gold and silver as a fallback, period. You can play with Bitcoin after we get gold and silver done. But gold and silver has the history behind it. It's wanted. Anywhere in the world you go, gold and silver is wanted. People will pay money for it. It has value far beyond money. The intrinsic value is there. And we've talked about that before. I'll say it one more time, and I'll try not to say it again. If you wake up tomorrow morning and all the gold in the world is gone, your life will be affected a little bit. But I'll tell you what, you wake up tomorrow morning and all the silver in the world is gone, we're back to the 1820s. That's how valuable silver is right now. I mean, it's in everything, and it's not. They do have graphene, but it's $4,000 an ounce to create graphene to compete with silver. Silver has properties that no other metal has for electronics, which is no resistance, for electron flow. So you don't have to cool silver like you have to cool copper or anything else that you're flowing electrons through. It's a perfect metal for literally electronics. That's what your phone's made out of, your TV's made out of, where you don't have to have large fans or large passive cooling units. And so that's why silver's in everything. And it's in water filtration, it's in medical devices, it's in burn creams, and silver is the second most useful commodity on the planet. So when people say, gold and silver, it's just useless. It's just useless lumps of rock. No, gold's used in industry too, not as much as silver, but these are very, very useful metals for industry. For literally our modern society, we cannot do without silver. Now, if all the gold in the world disappeared, we could live without that. It really wouldn't affect you very much, but that's certainly not true with silver. So at any rate, my message is, for those of you who are into Bitcoin, I understand the novelty and the usefulness and, the effectiveness and, the peerless ability of Bitcoin to be, basically a blockchain that is investigatable by anybody. You can't hide, for instance, financial malfeasance on the Bitcoin blockchain. I understand this, but we can't gamble the dollar, the world reserve currency, dying on everyone having Bitcoin. We can't gamble that way. We'll gamble after we get gold and silver done. Then we can gamble. So, all right. So I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're fine,
I'm
dude.
off that tangent.
Yeah, it's fine. I just again, it's one of those things that I find interesting and unbearable at times. Is that again, to me, the naivety that because it's blockchain, nobody can touch it, and it's like, I bet you in this country alone, the amount of people that have said, God knows how many times, well, they're not going to do that because this is the United States. We got to give up on that one. You got to stop saying it can't happen here, because when you do, they'll do it, and it will happen here. And there'll be more boo-hooing and crying, but it's like, how many times is this going to happen before you get out of this being patriotic to a fault and saying that it can't happen here? That comment has been made by a lot of people for a long time, and yet it happens over and over again because people they're not paying attention. I don't know. I just have I have a good feeling about gold and silver. I have a really good feeling about the sales tax on groceries. And something else interesting, too, is that even though I hate to admit this, this past Sunday, I believe, it was either this past Sunday, no, I guess it was one of the middle of the week updates that This Week in Missouri Politics does, Scott Vaughn. He made comment the other day, or a couple weeks ago, that Bill Eigil's really coming on strong. And I'm like, well, yeah, he's a solid guy. I mean, look at the bills that he tries pushing through. Personal property tax has been doing for the last, I don't know how many years. It's one of his signature bills. Every year, he's like, let's get rid of personal property tax. Now he's got the gold and silver bill. He's got other bills out there, too, that have been very sound bills. And it was kind of funny to hear Scott Vaughn like, oh, wow, Bill Eigil's really coming on strong. Like, where have you been? I know he's he's a simp for the rhinos and everything, but good Lord, it's like, have you not been paying attention at all? Now, mind you, he only gave about 30 seconds of that, and he went right on with whatever else he was talking about. Senator Eigel is coming on strong, but he's been strong for a while. And every year that goes by, he seems to get better.
Yeah, one thing I'll say, you're absolutely correct about Bill Eigel. And he's got a lot of bills. He's got 40 of them right now. But someone who doesn't get a whole lot of mention is Mike Moon. He puts out incredible Liberty bills. By the way, I would like to mention I have heard through the grapevine that Mike Moon is actually going to be the featured guest on Off the Cuff on Sunday night with Sam Britton and the Missouri Liberty Radio, by the way.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm a little bit envious. I'm not going to lie, because I tried what was right around the time of the gas tax going through and everything else. Now, they were late in session at that time because that's when they were trying to get SEPA through and the gas tax and everything. And there was that big battle. I tried so hard to get him on with me for 15 minutes, and I never could. I never got that man on my show. And I'm happy that Sam is going to have him on. I think that's outstanding. But I'm going to have to ask Sam, hey, buddy, what strings did you pull to do that, my friend? But no, it's great. It's great that Sam's going to have another Liberty lover on his show. That's outstanding. But yeah, at some point, I got to get Mike Moon on with me for a conversation. But yeah, I probably picked the wrong time because, again, they were going really late in session according to his L.A., and having a heck of a time. And she apologized profusely. She's like, I'm sorry. She's like, let's try it again. So I would go on and I would hang around for 15 minutes talking to the people who are viewing, and is like, I don't think he's going to call again. So after like 3 or 4 times, I was like, all right, I'm not gonna, I can't keep getting on here saying he's going to be on with me, and he doesn't call, and looking like an idiot. So I finally called and left a message that said, we'll forget about it. We'll do it some other time. But yeah, it's outstanding that Sam's going to have him on.
I need to get some of your cards and just have some of your cards from when I'm up in Jeff City and you're not there. We need to, Mike Moon needs one of your cards.
Yeah.
He's got to know about you too, so, but that's just, and by the way, we're real blessed to have people like Mike Moon and Bill Eigel, and others, basically. I mean, I could go on through the house too. There's lots of people I love in the house. Sure. And in fact, I want to say another thing, how powerful this getting rid of sales tax on food is in Missouri. Peter Meredith is on board. We got the Democrats, we're talking to the Democrats about this. They're on board. The conservative loving, Republicans are on board. It's probably only going to be the rhinos. And we have enough between the Democrats and the conservatives to get it done in the state of Missouri. And I'm proud to be able to work with the Democrats on an issue like this. They see the need for it too. And so it's the right thing to do, and their constituents want it done. So in this case, they're listening to their constituents. And by the way, I'm not saying that the Republicans don't want this, because it looks like this is something that everyone wants. We've been able to prove it time and time again. Every single time we have a meet and greet. I had one in Springfield on January 16th. Everyone raised their hand. They wanted the tax cut or the elimination of sales tax on food. And John, at the one in Eureka, if you remember, we asked how many people, and I think there was, out of 35 people, only 2 people didn't raise their hands for, getting rid of the sales tax on food. Oddly enough, 2 people were like, I guess I'm fine with the sales tax on food. 2 out of 35. That's when you get a chance to actually have some representatives and senators speaking to a group of people. It's a really good idea to ask very pointed questions of the audience, because that's valuable information to their representation. But trust me, it is. That made an impression on Ben Brown and Holly Jones. That made a big impression. And so at any rate, and we need to keep proving it over and over again, everywhere we go, this is what the people want. So we can get this done this year through our legislator and finally get rid of the dreaded sales tax on food in the state of Missouri.
Yeah, and just a reminder to those who may not have seen it, I videoed the whole thing Sunday and posted it on my YouTube channel. So if you go to my YouTube channel, you can watch, and surprisingly, for just having my phone on a gimbal propped up on the table, it picked up all the audio, even people that were farther away. You can hear their questions. You don't have to put a thing up to your ear, or put in a hearing aid to hear the question. You can hear the dialogue between the reps, or the senator, and the people in the audience. So yeah, feel free to check it out. It's about 2 hours long, but there's a lot of good stuff in that video, and you'll get to see exactly how it was done. So if you would like to do that in your area, you can kind of see how Gary set it up and how we went through it all, and it went off real slick.
Yep, and Sam I Am is mentioning Bill was fantastic at Travis's event last Sunday.
Yeah, I wish I would have been able to have been there too. Split myself in half.
We had that was actually a scheduling conflict, and that was unfortunate, because it's always a treat to see Bill speak. You know, it really is. Honestly, if you've never seen Bill speak before, you know, it's literally a pleasure. And he is so animated and so much fun, and so full of life and energy and liberty. So actually, it's really hard to come away from that, you know, thinking, you know, oh, I wonder if Bill's faking it, you know, or Bill's a bad guy in disguise. No, he's definitely pushing liberty for sure. I mean, you see it in his bills anyway. But at any rate, Sam says, I guess the question I have on the food tax is, where does that money go after it's collected? Well, that's a very good question. Actually, it goes to the county. And the county sends a disbursement 1.225% to the state. And then the county keeps some for itself and gives some to the city. I think that's the way it works. And so at any rate, but they all have different percentages no matter where you live in the state. But the state is only 1.225% of the 7%, let's say, sales taxes you pay on food, or 5% or whatever it is wherever you live. So at any rate, so that's the answer to that question. And at any rate, the cities and counties are going to have to do without that tax too. That's an immoral tax. That's a good tax to get rid of. And someone has got to give. Because like I said, we have NIMBY going on, not in my backyard. Every single, you know, county, every single city, you know, department and county department, state department, don't cut my taxes. Don't cut my taxes. We got to cut somewhere, gang. We have to cut somewhere. And I'll tell you what, it's come to the point now we're going to have to start shoving these tax cuts down, you know, these state and county and cities' throats, because we have to cut. It's demanded by the Constitution of Missouri. We have to cut taxes. We're taking in too much money. Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I agree. People are going to have to get a little uppity with their city councils, their county boards, or whatever, and say, listen, you know, again, we know that you're taking in record profits, record revenue from taxes. It's high time that you all cut your spending. And how about we get to keep a little bit more of our money, because you guys aren't hurting, but the rest of us sure as heck are. And, you know, that's the thing. Again, because it's government and because it's not their money, it's very easy for them to spend it and say, hey, we need more from you.
Yep.
But somehow you got to get across to these people that, you know, yeah, sure, you're taking in record profits now, record revenues now. But if this keeps going, your revenues are going to fall, because we're not going to have the money to spend at the store. Then what are you going to do? You know, what are you going to do then? So how about you learn to live on a little bit less like the rest of us do before it all falls apart?
Well, how about, you know, basically they tighten the belt a little bit so we don't have to tighten ours so much.
Yeah.
John Grady has a great question. What are they defining as food? Okay, Mary Elizabeth Coleman's SB 161 defines food as anything that can be purchased with an EBT card. So that's the definition. Anything that can be purchased with food stamps. So at any rate, there you go. So it's not like you can buy cigarettes and booze in the grocery store, tax free. So it's what you can buy with an EBT card. Yeah. Yep, that's correct. John Doe had it as well. Go ahead.
Yeah. And that's, that's the best way to do it. That's the best way to line that bill out. And so literally there's no question. There's no, oh, well, can I do that? No. Just think EBT. Anything you buy with an EBT card will not be taxed. You won't have any sales tax. Whatever. But I don't think you could write it any better than what they did. It's blunt and to the point, just like every other piece of legislation should be. Blunt and to the point. Not with a bunch of other BS crammed in there in the backside. Because it was done in a constitutional way. Not only is it written constitutionally, but it is constitutionally sound because, again, as we've said so many times, it benefits everyone. Not a select group of, a race or an industry or an age group or a sex or whatever. It's literally everyone benefits. And that's as constitutional as you can get.
Mm-hmm. That's right. It's in the Missouri Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, equal application under the law.
Yeah.
So at any rate, that's exactly the way it's done. Equal application under the law means basically the law affects everyone equally. And when whether you're making a law about something, how many trees you can have on your property, that'd be more of an ordinance. That's a bad example, but I can't think of a law right now that I like. So whether it's how many trees you can have on your property or cutting taxes, it's supposed to literally benefit or be to the detriment of everyone equally, equal application under the law. And when it comes to food, everyone in Missouri buys food. So this is the best way to cut taxes that literally, benefits everyone, and it's based on your consumption, which is even better. Those that don't buy a lot of groceries, they obviously have a different source of food. They can, they're gardening and everything. So they will benefit less than those who buy lots of food from the grocery store. Obviously, I get that. But, this is the best way to do it, is per consumption. And
right.
So and it's the same thing with gasoline, by the way. There's some people that buy very little gasoline, and there's people like me that buy a lot of gasoline. I would really benefit from removal of the gasoline tax, but you won't see me pitching for it over food because food is the best constitutional solution to a tax cut in the state of Missouri. So I know I'm not the kind of guy that goes for bills that benefit me personally. I think about the greater good. And we all should, because the Constitution's not just for me, it's for everyone in Missouri. So I should be thinking along those lines when it comes to legislation. What benefits everyone or the most people in the state of Missouri, not just what benefits me.
Yeah, and that is our moral obligation, is to, especially when we're talking legislature-wise, that we are to do what is best for, when we're looking, well, I guess on a liberty standpoint, you are to fight for liberty for all, not just for yourself or just your town, but everybody in the state. Everybody in the state. And I know that people have a problem sometimes if there's somebody they don't really care for. Somebody maybe that irks them and they're like, oh, I don't really like this guy and I don't want him to have as much freedom as I do or whatever. But that's not the way we have to think about these things. There are going to be people in your life that you don't care for, but if you see their rights being trampled, it is your moral obligation to stand up for that person regardless of what your feelings are, because what happens to that person could end up happening to you. So you have to put everybody again equally to you as far as freedom and liberty go. You want it for everybody and not just a few people.
Right.
So there is
And
that.
you know what? I would hate to be a hypocrite. I would hate to, be the kind of guy that literally, goes out there and convinces everyone, that this is the best for Missouri when it clearly is not the best thing to do for Missouri. I would hate to be the guy who says, I can't work with one party. I can't work with the Democrats or I can't work with the Republicans. I'll work with anybody in Jeff City for the betterment of literally the state of Missouri. That's what we do in the Missouri Freedom Initiative, gang. That's what we do. And so basically, for those of us who remember SAPA, I'm glad that some people got over their hard feelings, and I was one of them, because there was a lot of strange stuff going on with the Democrats on the House and Senate floors against SAPA. And that was clearly a very constitutional move, SAPA. And who was against it? The Democrats. But at the same time, we can work with them on getting rid of sales tax on food. So we're going to work with them. We're not going to throw them away. They want this for their constituents, so we'll do it. So, I don't know how else to say it, but we'll work with anyone who is willing to work with us. And that's why we don't get involved in elections. Is because if the Missouri Freedom Initiative got involved in elections, and if we, said we prefer this person over this person, and the person that we want does not win, it is less likely the person who won, who we were against, is going to work with us. It's less likely. So, we want to work with everyone up there, everyone. So that's what we do.
Yeah, and there are times where, it don't get me wrong, it's harder and harder to find. But sometimes a Democrat will propose a bill maybe on justice reform or something to that effect, where there is clearly government is infringing upon the rights of maybe a certain group of people because of a certain activity or whatever. And Democrats will write a bill to fight against that. Now, if you're going to go, well, if you're going to look up what party it came from and say, oh, that's a Democrat bill, I don't want anything to do with it, then you're not about freedom. You're putting party over principle. And, folks, we don't have room for that right now.
No.
We don't have time. I don't have the patience for it, and I don't have the time for it. I really don't.
Yep.
Because,
that's a good point, John. That's a good point.
Because, we sit here and we talk about the legislature a lot, and we see people, we see representatives or senators who put their principles over the party, and then we clearly see senators and representatives that put party over principle. And sometimes it's not even the party, it's they put the money or the donors' wishes over principle. But regardless, they're not even standing behind their own party platform, the one they supposedly stand on. They stand to side with those who could give them some benefit, and basically just forget about the people that voted for them. And again, you shouldn't have people out there listening to this shouldn't have the time or the patience for people like that either, whether they're people in the public sphere or the people at the Capitol. If they're a senator or rep and they don't have the time for you and they don't want to, bend to your will, if you're trying to gain liberty for all and they don't want to hear about it, then don't put your time and energy into those people. Find somebody else who will listen to you and take you seriously and do what is best, not what is financially beneficial for them or something that will give them more power in the long run. Because we see people like Plocker and some of the others doing those same things all the time. And not only is it awful to see, it also makes our job a heck of a lot harder when we're fighting for liberty and they're basically doing all this for their benefit. It's aggravating because, again, not only are they not listening to you, they're clearly doing something for themselves, which is not what that position is supposed to be about. But unfortunately, a lot of them do use that position to climb the ladder of their political career. So that is irritating and very time-consuming, trying to battle with someone or find an end around to those people participating that way.
So, and I want to say something here real quick, too, as far as that goes. If you're watching this, if you've never been politically active, it's actually really, really easy in the state of Missouri to get started. Check out our website, mofree.org, and get on our email list. We'll give you all the information you need. If you believe in the bills that we are supporting, that's great. Come and help us and be a part of it. If not, get the emails anyway. And that way you know how we're doing it. So, basically you can get the best of both worlds. I love this, and I didn't get into the telephone call with Terry, but maybe I won't get into that tonight. But I talked to Terry last night, and she lives on the north side of Lake of the Ozarks. And, she was asking me all kinds of pertinent questions on the phone. She was saying, well, how do you get a bill through? How does the bill start? What's the next step? What can people do to support the bill in this stage or that stage of the legislative process? She was asking all the right questions. I gave her an hour and 45 minutes of my time last night on the phone. And first time I talked to her up in Jeff City, but because literally I knew she was interested, she is going to get involved. She is going to actually try to make a difference. She loves Bill Eigels' SB 100. And she's also very much liking Mary Elizabeth Coleman's SB 161, getting rid of the sales tax on food. She loved the bills that we were doing. So she wanted to know more about us and how to get involved. So, I'm very, very happy when I see people get involved for the very first time. And we've seen a lot of that with SB 100. There's a lot of folks getting involved just because of that bill. Hearing about that bill got them excited enough to actually start participating in the system. So, sometimes it's legislation, sometimes it's legislators that get people involved. But at the same time, for us, it's about liberty. It's about literally expanding the people's liberty, their freedom. And, actually just making sure that, that life is a better experience overall. But guys, tough times are coming politically and economically. We have got to get ready in the state of Missouri for this stuff. This isn't, maybe someday the dollar won't do so well. Gang, we're here. We're here. The dollar is not doing very well. If you don't know that, you've not been to the grocery store. And you haven't been to the gas pump. You haven't been buying a house or a car. You haven't bought anything really because everything's gone up. So at any rate, that's kind of my message. Basically people getting involved for the first time, God bless you. We need you. Join us. We'll take good care of you.
Well, and the thing is too, Patrick, is that we both talk about the importance of going to the Capitol to see your legislator, your representative, your senator. Here's another reason to go, because you might find somebody else that didn't know the process, a chance meeting. Listen, I've spoken on this several times before. A chance meeting, Patrick, a chance meeting of Sam and Trish Britton, and all these other folks. A chance meeting with Tom Martz, going to Robert Smith's, political event and meeting Tom. Here's another chance for a chance meeting of someone, getting to know them, giving them a little information. Sooner or later, you have another star on your team. So another reason to visit your capital, because sometimes a chance meeting is very beneficial for the both of you. You can educate each other, but you might find another ally in the fight for freedom. So another good reason to visit the Capitol.
Sure. John Doe says, Patrick, you and your enthusiasm are the reason why Maya and I have gotten involved. I'll tell you what, that's very nice of you to say, but it's the enthusiasm of the people in the initiative that keep me going. So, I mean, maybe we both need it. And, but the people in the initiative that keep pushing, and working and just not, I'd like to say a wonderful word about Goatfoot Grant tonight. I don't think he's on right now. But Goatfoot Grant has been keeping a very careful eye on all the IP initiatives in Jefferson City and keeping us all apprised in a private text group. And basically to keep all of us aware of what's going on with IP initiative, because, Grant knows that I was going to be very busy this week, and several of us were, but he used his spare time to keep us informed and also to help. He went to go testify on behalf of HJR 30. So, I mean, being in the initiative doesn't mean that you have to be up in Jeff City when Pat's up there. You don't have to have Pat up there with you. I mean, being in the initiative just means you're informed and you're working towards liberty in your state. That's what it really, truly means. We don't have membership dues. We don't have an official sign-up sheet. We don't even really, truly know our numbers. We don't really know. I mean, how many people identify with being in the Missouri Freedom Initiative? But I'll tell you what, though, when we go up there for Knock and Shock, our numbers just keep growing. We're huge. You can't miss us in Jefferson City when we're walking the halls. We're a huge group. And so at any rate, that denotes strength. So, I mean, that helps. That helps. I mean, that makes an impression with legislators. And especially when we're coming from all four corners of the state, that helps. It's not just a clump of people from Springfield. That would have less meaning when you go to a senator's office or a representative's office. So the fact that we're coming from all over the state, that has much greater meaning. Even though all of us, all 25 of us that show up in a senator's office, not one of us belongs to that district. But the fact is, we're coming from all over the state is very meaningful.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, for those of you who don't know, let me recheck my calendar here. But I believe Goatfoot Grant is going to be on with me next Friday, if I'm not mistaken. Let me check my calendar here. But I'm almost 100% sure that I will be joined by Grant next. Yeah, Grant's going to be on with me next week. So, Grant,
awesome.
If you listen later, looking forward to having you on. And I know, and folks, it seems like I'm picking favorites here, and I'm not. Grant has asked before about coming on, and I do like Grant a lot because Grant's so laid back and easygoing, but he's sharp as a tack. And yeah, he does a lot of work, because I see in the group text, about every other day he's posting updates. He's giving us updates on, HDR 30 and 43 and some of these other things. He's keeping everybody apprised on what's going on at the Capitol. So, and I do want to mention at some point, it's going to be a few months. Patrick and I were talking before the show. I have never had, the whole time I've been doing podcasting, I've never had this many guests lined up. I've just never had so many weeks filled up. I am all the way out until the second Friday of April. So, it's kind of crazy because used to I'd have to, I gotta look up articles for this week's show, and I haven't had to do that in quite a while. And I know that everybody enjoys that more because, it's better than just listen to me talk the whole time. And I get that. I don't even listen to the sound of my own voice for an hour, let alone expecting other people to do it. But at some point down the road, we're going to try to figure out, Patrick, how to get, I don't know, two or three other people like yourself and a couple other people from the Missouri Freedom Initiative on for a show. And we'll just party chat in through the phones. And have a big discussion with a few members from the organization and just talk all things Missouri. It's something that I kind of thought about, and I was like, it'd be kind of cool to do. I know Sam's had talked about one time doing kind of a Liberty Roundtable. I guess that would be kind of my version of it. But yeah, get a few people on from the organization and just do a show one Friday and kind of get multiple people's thoughts on issues, because that's when we're, I think, the most productive and constructive is when we get, a lot of different people's input. So at some point, maybe April, May, we'll try to do a Friday night show and have a few people on from the organization and just have a good conversation.
I love it. I think that's great.
And it's not that, and Patrick, I know you don't necessarily want to be the face of the organization, but you are. But again, I have you on, I've had you on, for several times. And I think to lend a little more credibility to what you're saying is to hear other people, their experiences, things they've done. And it makes it just a little bit more relatable to the audience when they hear not just your take, but a few of the others' takes on things they've done, what they've seen. And hopefully it helps you all out and, grow the group a little bit.
Sure.
So that's kind of where I'm looking at there. Just kind of wanted to throw that out there because you brought up Grant, and I'm like, oh, crap, he's on with me next week. Duh.
Yep. And Grant is, been with us a long time. Casey Rich was the first person to join Jimmy and I up in Jefferson City. And it was either Grant or Scott that was second. I can't remember which. So, yeah, these folks have been with us a long time. They were helping to fight the Battle of Sapa, the great Battle of Sapa. Someone's going to write a book about that someday.
You know what? You say that, and I know you're kind of joking around, Pat, but at some point, maybe getting some people from the group together, especially the ones that have been there a while, and start reliving those things, documenting them, and maybe at some point publishing it, or just doing several.
We have a video.
Go ahead.
We have a video record of this, and the Truth, Money, and Freedom podcast on YouTube.
Okay, yeah.
Everything we went through, with our group being involved in everything. I mean, everything that made it great, everything that made it terrible, the dizzying highs, the terrifying lows. At one point, we were ready to scrap SEPA, literally in 2021. We were going to scrap it and just say to hell with it, because we were messing with, trying to get the public unions off our backs. In that case, the Sheriff's Association. The Voodoo Queen says the email and call-a-thon, the Ubatubathons we did, 11-hour Ubatubathons to get people to keep calling the Senate and the House. We worked that hard, not to mention all the visits to Jefferson City to get all the co-sponsors. I mean, it was a battle. That was a 2-year battle for our organization. And so, and we won the war. We got it done. And, and it was a wonderful moment, and so at any rate, we got it done. No other state's gotten this done, gang. Something to be very proud of in our state. And a lot of people worked for this. It wasn't just our organization. Ron Calzone, literally, General Calzone, was fighting the battle for 8 years. 8 years. Technically, I got involved in the last 3 years, but the organization got involved in the last 2 years. So, it was just Jimmy and Dave and I for 1 year. And we were trying to figure out how to help, how to make it worthwhile. And, basically the structure that we would have for the social media enclave, basically to get a massive grassroots movement in the shortest period of time. We had help from Brian Young, by the way. Some people know him as High Impact, V-Flix or High Impact Vlog or something. He gave us a little bit of help too, so from strange places.
Well, and maybe that'll be our topic for kind of our roundtable is to go back and revisit that battle, because what you did there helped you build a stronger organization. You got more participants, and the group is growing. Maybe that's something we can go back and we can, you guys can, because I don't know the story. I mean, you've told me bits and pieces, but I don't know. I know some good juicy tidbits, but getting all the meat of that story, maybe that's something that we should, when we do this, that's the topic we can visit on, and give people a real perspective on, what you guys did, and then maybe kind of leading up to, present day. But I just feel like, because a lot of people probably won't go back and look at the videos. Some of them might, but a lot of people might not. And it's still relevant, because what you did then, you're continuing to do now. It's not like you did it once and you're like, oh, but it was a one shot at glory. Yeah. And then it's been failures ever since. No, the story, it's still a good story. It's still a relevant story. And I think it could be empowering for a lot of people. So maybe, you bringing up SEPA and everything, that would probably be the best topic to cover, because a lot of people, again, when we go to these, the meet and greet here in Owensville, the one in Eureka, and other places we've been, you talk about SEPA, people's hands go up. They know.
Yep.
And so that might be the one hot topic to discuss, so people get a full understanding of the process, how much effort and blood, sweat, and tears was put into that. But not only that, there was a victory at the end. So a very good story to tell.
Absolutely. Maybe we're short-sighted right now, John. We should be thinking SEPA the book, SEPA the documentary, SEPA the movie, SEPA the musical. We can actually write songs and tomes, about the great battle of SEPA, and I don't know. And then, maybe there's a way to capitalize on this.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I think, what would be great, and I know this sounds ridiculous, but I think what would be great is if we could get some people from the group together in a central location and literally video parts and just reliving that thing and then posting things like that to the channels. Because to me, it's so important. And again, part of it's because I started this whole thing right in the middle of that, 15 minutes with Jared Taylor. Not understand. I mean, I knew how big this was. I didn't understand how big the battle was, the grassroots battle. I didn't understand. I didn't know about it. Didn't understand it. And so, I just happened to get lucky and interview a guy that wrote the bill, and then, but I didn't realize how many people were in the background that were pushing this thing through. And so, yeah, if we could ever come up with a way to do that, I think that, I'm not saying we're going to make $1 million, but I think it would be an amazing story to tell, even just a few years later after the bill was signed into law, because,
sure,
again, yeah, other states might have something similar, but ours, Missouri's is the best. And I think that's not only amazing because we get to live in a state where it all went down, but some things in history, Pat, are worth revisiting over and over again because of the importance of the topic. And I think that really is something that needs to be revisited in detail.
Yeah, maybe a summer project or something, when the legislative season is done, something we can look at. Absolutely.
Okay. Well, John Doe says, I vote for John W. to sing the soundtrack. Buddy, you don't want me singing squat because that's going to we're trying to draw people in, not turn them away, and that's what's going to happen. John starts singing, and things are going to go to hell in a handbasket in a hurry. He's got a lot of laughing emojis after that statement, but you really don't realize the damage that I could do with my singing voice. Oh man, that would be awful for everyone involved, including myself. Well, Pat, is there anything else that you'd like to talk about before we end here?
I think we pretty much covered everything in the last week. And once again, gang, I'm putting out an email tomorrow morning. If you're not on our email list, go to www.mofree.org. Get on our email list. I'll send out an email tomorrow morning or early tomorrow afternoon. And, once again, cover the highlights of the last week. But also, it's important for people to start calling their senators, emailing their senators, letting them know they want them to vote yes on SB 100. And next week, we delve into Mary Elizabeth Coleman's 161, getting rid of the sales tax on food. So we're kind of switching gears a little bit because, basically SB 100 is going to be waiting for a little while, up to a month, before it gets to the floor of the Senate. So basically just a call and an email to your senator should be all that's really necessary. Everyone do it at least once. And then also, I just want to remind everyone that the legendary Mike Moon is going to be on Sam's Off the Cuff tomorrow night. Or I'm sorry, not tomorrow night, Sunday night. Yeah. So gosh darn it, I don't know that anyone's ever gotten Mike Moon for an interview before. So that should be really good. He's got a lot of Liberty bills, and they often get overlooked. So be sure to tune in on Sunday night with Off the Cuff with Sam Britton.
Yeah, if you guys go down in the description section of this video channel here, every week you'll see a link to Patrick's, Missouri Freedom Initiative, Patrick's website, their Odyssey channel, and then there's also a link to molibertyradio.us, 7 to 9 Central Time, Sunday nights, Sam and Trish Britton Off the Cuff Radio. But yeah, the link's in the video description, so click on that, and especially on Sunday nights. I mean, I want you to show them some love. More days during the week, but especially on Sunday nights, 7 to 9, I want you to show some love to Sam and Trish. And Saturday nights at 7:30 on Odyssey, on the Missouri Freedom Initiative's Odyssey channel. Show them some love too. Go over there, watch the live stream, get yourself educated on what's to do. What's happening in the legislature and things that the organization that what they're working on currently and kind of the plans maybe in the next the few weeks or months to come. Other things they're looking to start building on and working on. So again, check the video description. You'll see all the links there. And make sure that you sign up for the Missouri Freedom Initiative's email list because then you also get some insight to what's going to be covered on the live stream and what's going on in the legislature as well. Lots of good information. I'm signed up on it, and I know a lot of other people are. Make sure you get yourself on that list. Well, folks, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Missouri Liberty Report. I greatly appreciate, again, all of your support. Everybody that views the live stream, listens on the radio, downloads the podcast, however you get it. You guys have been fantastic. And, again, I always appreciate your continued support. The numbers look great, so I know we're doing something right. So anyway, with that, next week again, Grant Sundberg will be on with me. Goatfoot Grant, also known as, will be with me next week on the 17th. 17th? Yeah, 17th. Epen Thampy will be with me. That's going to be a good one because I know because of Tony Lavasco has filed a bill on psilocybin. And I'm sure that's going to be one of the hot topics we discuss, plus some other issues in the state of Missouri. And then the 24th, Senator Eigel's L.A. Sherry will be on with me, and we're going to talk about the jobs that the LAs do and some of the work that they put in, because we talk about the representatives, which we're supposed to because they represent us, but we need to discuss the people who are a big help to them, who field the phone calls and do a lot of legwork for their respective bosses. So Sherry has obliged me, and she will be joining me on the 24th to discuss her job and give us a little insight. So with that, folks, we'll see you next Friday right here on the Missouri Liberty Report. Let me cue up my music.
Let's
Want
go
more
Liberty.
freedom? It starts with you. Join us next week on the Missouri Liberty Report and find out how you can get involved to take back your state.
All right, folks, thanks again for joining me this week. And, for those of you in the live stream, because I forgot to mention at the end of the show, be sure to check out slaphappybeverage.com for me. Check out our sponsor. I know he would appreciate it, and I know I would appreciate it. Now, I don't get any kickbacks, so don't think I'm getting paid kickback money to say it. I'm just saying he's a good sponsor. He's our sponsor for this show. Make sure you check out his website and order you some Mellocello. And if you want, again, right here at the top in the description panel here, you will see Mr. Grady's website. You can click there and go check out the products. So, again, thanks, everybody. All the comments and questions and everything else. Appreciate each and every one of you. And we'll see you all next Friday.